Almost every chord you have ever heard, in every song, on every instrument, is built from one tiny move repeated twice. Here is the entire move. Pick a note. Skip the next letter and grab the one after it. Then skip again and grab the next. That's it. You didn't have to count semitones or memorize a shape with funny finger numbers. You just landed on a note, skipped a letter, and the work was done. You've just stacked 2/3, and 3 notes are now ringing together. Notice what you did and didn't do. You didn't grab the notes right next to each other. You jumped over one each time, leaving a little gap, and that gap is the whole secret. That little tower of 3 notes has a name. It's a triad, and it is the seed that nearly all Western harmony grows from. Pop songs, hymns, film scores, the chords under a guitar solo, the block of sound a pianist drops with the left hand, an overwhelming amount of it is triads, or triads with 1 or 2 extra notes piled on later. So if chords have always felt like a wall of mysterious symbols you were supposed to just memorize, this is the moment that wall comes down. Master this one shape and chords stop being symbols to look up and start being something you can build with your own 2 hands, from scratch, on any note you like. So let's build one from the ground up, hear it ring, and then spread the very same shape right across a whole scale. We'll build our first triad on C, because the notes will all be white and easy to see, with nothing hiding on a black key to distract us. The bottom note is the foundation, the note the whole chord is named after and measured from, and we call it the root. The root is C, and it gives the whole chord its name. Lock your eyes on it, because everything else is going to be measured from this one key. Now we climb in thirds. From the root we count up a third, skipping over D, and we land on E. That's the move from the very first scene, don't take the neighbor, jump over it. The note we land on is called the third of the chord, and it sits for half steps above the root. Hold on to that number, because in the next video the exact size of this third is what decides whether the chord sounds happy or sad. Then we stack one more third on top. From E we skip over F and land on G. That top note is the 5th, sitting 7 half steps above the root. Root, third, 5th. C, E, G. 3 notes, 2 skips, evenly spaced up the keyboard. Play them one after another, from the bottom up, and you hear an arpeggio climbing, the chord spelled out one note at a time. Now press all 3 down at once. That full, settled, confident sound is the C major chord, probably the first chord almost anyone learns on any instrument. 3 notes, 2 stacked thirds, and the entire foundation of Western harmony is sitting right there under your fingers. Here is where it gets powerful, and where one shape turns into a whole world. That skip one key shape isn't just for C. You can plant it on every single note of the scale, and each time it hands you a brand new chord, all from the same 7 white keys, with the same simple rule. Watch the pattern, and keep your eye on the shape rather than the letters. Start on D, skip a letter, skip again, D, F, A, that's the D chord, sitting 1 step higher than where we began. Move the whole shape up 1 step and start on E, E, G, B, now the E chord. Keep walking it up the scale, planting the same skip shape on each new note. Start on F and you get F, A, C, start on G and you get G, B, D, start on A and you get A, C, E. And start on B and you get B, D, F, count what just happened. 7 notes in the scale, 7 triads, 1 for every degree, and every one of them is just root, skip, third, skip, 5th. The shape never changes. You don't learn 7 different chords with 7 different rules. You learn one shape, and you simply slide it along the keyboard. These 7 chords are the home team of the key, the family of chords that naturally belong together because they're all drawn from the same set of notes. Almost every song you know in C major is built by choosing a few of these and putting them in an order, and now you can see the whole family laid out in front of you at once. So why thirds? Of all the ways you could combine notes, Why does music stack them in this particular gappy way, skipping a letter every single time, instead of jamming neighbors together? This isn't an arbitrary rule somebody invented. Try the alternative and you'll hear the answer instantly, no theory required. Pile up 3 notes right next to each other, 3 keys in a row with no gaps, and the sound is a harsh, muddy clash. There's no room for the notes to breathe, they're so close together that they grind against one another, and your ear hears noise rather than a chord. But space them a third apart and something lovely happens. Each note gets its own clear air, its own room to ring, and the 3 of them lock into a warm, open, stable blend that the ear reads as a single color rather than 3 separate pitches fighting for the same spot. That gap of a third is the sweet spot. It's wide enough that the notes sound rich and full, and tight enough that they fuse into one sound instead of scattering apart. Too close and you get mud. Too far and the chord starts to feel hollow and thin. The third sits right in the middle, and that is no coincidence. It is the reason harmony in Western music is built in thirds and not in seconds or fourths. Stack thirds and you get chords that ring and feel like home. Stack anything else and you mostly get tension, color, or clash. This one quiet acoustic fact, that a third is the perfect distance, is holding up centuries of music underneath everything else. Now let's actually use them, because triads only come alive when they move. A single chord on its own is just a color. The magic is in the journey from one to the next, the way each chord sets up the one that follows. Watch what happens when we play a handful of these chords in a row, all of them pulled from that home team we just built. We'll start at home on the C chord, the root of the key, solid and grounded, the place that feels like the ground floor. Then move to the F chord, which lifts and opens the sound up, like a window swinging open and letting in light. Now to the G chord, which leans forward and feels like it wants to resolve, like a question waiting for its answer, like a held breath. And then home again to C, and listen to how it settles, how the tension lets go, how the journey lands, and you feel that quiet sense of arrival. C, F, G, C. You have heard that exact motion in hundreds of songs, in pop, in folk, in rock, in hymns, and now you know precisely what it is. For triads, each one just root, third, and fifth, taking turns and handing off to each other. That sense of leaving home, building up a little pull, and arriving back is the heartbeat of nearly all the music you love, and it is made of nothing more complicated than these 3-note stacks moving from one to the next. So that's the whole idea in one breath. A triad is 3 notes, stacked in thirds, a root, a third on top of it, and a fifth on top of that. Skip a key, and you're done. Build it on any note, and you have a chord. Build it on every note of a scale, and you have the entire chord family of a key, ready to be arranged into a song. This single shape is the seed that everything else in harmony grows out of. 7th chords, 9ths, the lush extended chords in jazz, the power chords in rock, all of them start from this exact stack and add to it. But here's the part we deliberately glossed over, and it's the door into everything that comes next. When we slid that shape up the scale, planting the same skip pattern on each note, the chords didn't all sound the same. Some came out bright and happy, some came out dark and serious, and one near the top sounded distinctly uneasy, almost like it didn't want to sit still. Same skip a key shape, different flavors. That's no accident. It is what gives a chord its entire emotional character, and it comes down to tiny differences in exactly where those thirds land. Next time, we'll pull those triads apart and meet the 4 different types, and you'll learn exactly which tiny changes turn a chord from happy to sad to tense to dreamlike.